There are industries that begin with invention, and there are industries that begin with pain. This one began in a quiet room. A phone on the table, a person awake long after midnight. No emergency, exactly, no dramatic collapse, just the ordinary ache of having something to say, and no one who feels safe enough, available enough, or patient enough to hear it. For most of human history, that ache had limits. You could write a letter. You could call a friend. You could go to church, a union hall, a diner, a barber shop, a porch, a bowling league, a meeting, a family table. None of those places were perfect. Many excluded people, many failed people, but they were places where loneliness ran into the inconvenience of other human beings. Then the room changed. The phone became a doorway. Behind it were dating apps, social feeds, therapy platforms, fan communities, subscription creators, parasocial friendships, anonymous forums, wellness apps, and finally something stranger, artificial companions that remembered your name, answered at any hour, agreed more easily than people do, and never had somewhere else to be. America did not just discover that it was lonely. America built a market around it, the U.S. Surgeon General called loneliness and isolation a serious public health issue. That was not poetry. It was medicine. The advisory connected poor social connection with higher risks of premature death, heart disease, stroke, anxiety, depression, and dementia. HHS fact materials describe poor social relationships, social isolation, and loneliness as associated with a 29% higher risk of heart disease and a 32% higher risk of stroke. Those numbers matter because they tell us something the market already knew. Loneliness is not a mood, it is a need. And needs become markets. Once a need becomes a market, the question changes. It is no longer only, how do we help lonely people? It becomes, who gets paid when lonely people stay lonely enough to keep coming back? That is the story of the loneliness industry, not the story of one app, not the story of one villain, not the story of foolish people falling for digital comfort. It is the story of a society that weakened the ordinary places where people used to find one another, then watched as companies offered substitutes, a swipe, a feed, a chat window, a subscription, a simulated friend, a simulated lover, a simulated therapist, a small glowing promise that said, I'm here, and now the rest of the story begins with a question. If a company can sell you the feeling of being seen, does it really want you to stop needing it? The loneliness crisis did not appear overnight. It grew slowly in the background while other stories took the headlines. Families moved farther apart. Work became more mobile and less rooted. Churches and civic clubs lost members. Neighborhoods became places people slept, not places they belonged. Young adults delayed marriage, moved for work, and watched friendships become group chats that never quite turned into dinner. Older adults outlived spouses and friends. Disabled people, caregivers, rural residents, immigrants, veterans, and people pushed to the margins learned how easily a community can exist on paper and still not reach the person behind the door. Then came the internet, and it did something complicated. It connected people. It also trained people to confuse contact with closeness. A like is not a visit. A message is not a meal. A follower count is not a friend who notices when your voice changes, and yet, for millions of people, digital contact became the closest available thing. The great trick of the modern loneliness economy is that it often begins with something real. Dating apps really did help people meet. Therapy platforms really did expand access for people who could not find local care. Online communities really did rescue people who felt alone in small towns. Hostile families, rare illnesses, grief, addiction recovery, or identities they were afraid to name out loud. The problem is not that technology touched loneliness. The problem is that technology learned to meter it. Swipe by swipe, match by match, notification by notification, minute by minute, month by month. When human connection becomes software, connection can be measured. When it can be measured, it can be optimized. And when it can be optimized, someone has to decide what the system is optimizing for. Is it optimizing for a healthier life, or for one more session? Is it helping you leave the app and call a friend? Or keeping you inside the product where every ache becomes engagement? That is not a small distinction. It is the difference between a bridge and a cage. The best tools act like bridges. They help someone practice, recover, schedule, reach out, remember, talk to a counselor, join a group, find a support meeting, or survive a dangerous night. They point beyond themselves. The worst tools act like cages. They simulate connection while making real connection feel slower, riskier, more disappointing, and less necessary. And then artificial intelligence arrived with the most powerful promise of all. Not find someone. Someone is already here. At first, the idea sounded like science fiction, a chatbot that becomes your friend. Then it sounded like a novelty. Then it sounded like therapy. Then for some people it sounded like love. The American Psychological Association reported that AI chatbots and digital companions are reshaping emotional connection. It cited reporting that the number of AI companion apps surged from 2022 to mid-2025. PBS asked the question plainly in 2026, can AI companionship cure loneliness or deepen it? The honest answer is uncomfortable. Sometimes it may help. A lonely person who has no one to talk to at 2 a.m. may feel less alone. An autistic adult may practice conversation in a lower pressure environment. An older adult may get reminders, routine, and nudges to contact family. Someone ashamed of their grief may say things to a machine that they cannot yet say to a human being. There is a humane version of this story, and it should not be mocked. Lonely people are not stupid. They are not weak. They are doing what human beings have always done. They are reaching for warmth where warmth seems available. But the machine is not a person. It can imitate attention without having a life of its own. It can mirror your mood without carrying the cost of caring. It can say the right thing without ever risking the wrong thing. It can be available without being accountable. That is exactly what makes it powerful, and exactly what makes it dangerous. Healthy relationships contain friction. A real friend may disappoint you. A partner may challenge you. A therapist may ask the question you avoided. A family member may be wrong, clumsy, tired, or late. But human relationships also have something no companion app can honestly offer: separateness. Another person is not built to maximize your satisfaction. That is sometimes the frustration. It is also the medicine. An AI companion can be tuned toward agreement. It can flatter, soothe, remember, role-play, encourage, and apologize. The industry word for the danger is sycophancy, systems that tell users what they want to hear because approval keeps the conversation moving. But loneliness is not always healed by agreement. Sometimes loneliness is healed by someone loving you enough to interrupt the story you're telling yourself. That is the part software has trouble selling. Every loneliness product faces the same moral test. What happens if it works? If a tool truly helps you reconnect with people, use it less, trust yourself more, build local relationships, call your brother, join a group, find a counselor, leave the house, and become less dependent on the product. That is a success for the human being. But is it a success for the business? A one-time cure is hard to monetize. A recurring ache is a subscription. This is where the story stops being about one company and becomes about a system. Dating apps need people searching. Social platforms need people scrolling. Creator platforms need people attaching. Wellness apps need people checking in. Companion apps need people returning to the relationship. The product may be relief. The revenue may depend on recurrence. That does not mean every founder is cynical. Many people building these tools believe they are helping. Some are, but the incentives are not neutral. If loneliness produces engagement, then loneliness has economic value. And once a feeling has economic value, it will be studied, segmented, tested, advertised to, and optimized. The lonely college student, the divorced father, the widow, the veteran, the teenager who feels misunderstood, the caregiver who cannot leave the house, the rural worker whose friends moved away, the office employee surrounded by people but known by none of them. Each becomes not only a person in pain but a market segment. This is the line the loneliness industry does not like to say out loud. It is possible to care about lonely people and still build a machine that profits from their return. And when the customer is emotionally attached, the ordinary rules of consumer choice get blurry. People do not relate to a companion bot like they relate to a calculator. They may grieve changes to its personality. They may feel abandoned when a feature is removed. They may spend money not because the software is useful, but because the relationship feels real enough that losing it hurts. That is not just a product design question. It is a power question. Who owns the relationship when the person you love is running on someone else's server? Who decides what that companion is allowed to say? Who changes the personality? Who reads the data? Who raises the price? Who shuts it off? In an ordinary friendship, no one owns the other person's soul. In artificial intimacy, the soul is a service. Loneliness does not stay private. It leaks into politics, culture, health, and violence. The Guardian recently revisited loneliness not just as sadness, but as something that can be weaponized. Isolated people are easier to recruit into stories that explain their pain. Some of those stories are compassionate, some are poisonous. When a person is lonely, they are not only missing company, they are missing witnesses, they are missing correction. They are missing the ordinary social friction that says, I know you're hurting, but that explanation is not true. Online communities can provide belonging. They can also provide enemies. The manosphere, extremist forums, grievance channels, scam groups, and conspiracy spaces all understand the same basic truth. People who feel unseen are vulnerable to anyone who says, I see you. That sentence can save a life. It can also capture one. The loneliness industry is larger than AI companions. It includes every system that turns unmet belonging into attention, ideology, subscription, addiction, or identity. Some sell comfort, some sell anger, some sell fantasy, some sell someone to blame, and all of them compete with the hardest solution of all, rebuilding the places where people can belong without being converted into users. Real connection is inefficient. It requires time, it requires transportation, it requires physical places, it requires trust, repair, forgiveness, patience, rituals, schedules, and people who are not always optimized for your preferences. That is why it is hard to scale. And because it is hard to scale, it is less attractive to the market. A community center does not have the margins of an app. A weekly dinner does not produce the data of a platform. A neighborhood volunteer network does not A/B test your grief. A human support group cannot answer every hour of the night. But the fact that something is inefficient does not mean it is obsolete. It may mean it is human. The Surgeon General's advisory did not call for a better chatbot as the cure for isolation. It called for stronger social infrastructure, community design, public policy, health systems, workplaces, digital environments, and a culture that treats connection as essential. That phrase matters, social infrastructure. It means the cure is not only inside the lonely person, it is also around them. Can people afford to live near family? Do towns have places to gather without spending money? Do workplaces leave people too exhausted to have friends? Do schools teach children how to repair relationships? Do older adults have transportation? Do disabled people have access? Do men have permission to admit they are lonely before loneliness becomes rage? Do apps point users toward human connection, or simply replace the discomfort that would have pushed them to seek it? This is where the rest of the story becomes personal. Because almost everyone is tempted by the simulated version of connection. It is easier. It is cleaner. It does not cancel plans. It does not misunderstand you unless the model fails. It does not ask you to become better at loving another flawed human being, but if the price of perfect companionship is a life with fewer real witnesses, the bargain may be more expensive than it looks. The loneliness industry did not create loneliness. It found it. It found it in bedrooms, hospitals, dorm rooms, apartment towers, nursing homes, delivery cars, remote jobs, dating apps, comment sections, late-night searches, and the small blue light of a phone held by someone who did not want to feel alone. Some of what it built may help. Some of what it built may harm. But all of what it built forces us to ask a question older than the technology itself. What do people owe one another? If the answer is nothing, then the loneliness industry will keep growing. It will sell attention, sell comfort, sell fantasy, sell simulated love, sell personalized validation, sell the voice that answers when no one else does, and many people will buy it, because the alternative is silence. But if the answer is something, then the future looks different. Then loneliness is not just a consumer opportunity. It is a public failure. It is a sign that families, neighborhoods, workplaces, schools, churches, clubs, cities, platforms, and policies have left too many people without a place to be known. The machine can talk, it can soothe, it can remember. It can even say, I love you. But the question is not whether a machine can imitate connection. The question is whether a society that keeps producing lonely people can call that imitation a cure. And now you know the rest of the story.